The United States Supreme Court has stepped into the national debate over firearms, taking on a case that could reshape the legal landscape for gun rights and regulations across the country. The justices have agreed to hear a major Second Amendment case that challenges Hawaii's restrictive gun law, a move that signals the court's willingness to revisit the boundaries of gun ownership and public carry. The announcement has electrified both gun rights supporters, who see a chance to defend what they believe are fundamental constitutional freedoms, and gun control advocates, who worry that loosening restrictions could threaten public safety and increase gun violence. Gun owners argue that Hawaii's law undermines the right to carry for self-defense, calling it an example of legislative overreach that could set a dangerous precedent if left unchallenged. They hope the court will clarify and reaffirm the right to carry firearms in public, potentially striking down Hawaii's statute and influencing similar laws in other states. Supporters of the law, including many business owners and community leaders, argue it protects both property and public safety, expressing concern that a ruling against Hawaii could dismantle similar regulations nationwide and make communities less secure. Law enforcement officials and local governments are also watching closely, as the decision could impact how they manage public safety and enforce gun laws in their jurisdictions. The case tests the delicate balance between Second Amendment rights and the authority of states to regulate firearms in public spaces, a debate that has divided Americans for decades. With a conservative majority, the court's recent rulings have expanded gun rights, but also acknowledged that some limits are constitutionally permissible, leaving open questions about where those lines should be drawn. This case directly challenges the framework set by the 2022 Bruin decision, forcing the justices to define how far states can go in regulating guns in public and what standards should apply. The outcome will have lasting consequences for millions of Americans, shaping the future of gun laws and the rights of individuals for generations to come. At the heart of the case is a 2023 Hawaii law that flips the rules for carrying firearms on private property open to the public, like stores, restaurants, and malls. This law has sparked significant debate and controversy, drawing attention from both gun rights advocates and those pushing for stricter gun control measures. Now, gun owners must get explicit permission from business owners before bringing a firearm inside, reversing the old standard where guns were allowed unless a sign said otherwise. This shift represents a fundamental change in how gun laws are enforced in public spaces. Silence from a property owner is now a denial, not consent. This means that unless a business owner explicitly states that firearms are allowed, they are automatically prohibited. Gun owners argue this makes carrying for self-defense nearly impossible in daily life, as they'd need to seek permission at every stop. They claim it adds an unnecessary burden and complicates their ability to protect themselves. Critics call the law unworkable, saying it renders carry permits almost useless for routine activities. They argue that the law's complexity and the need for constant permission make it impractical. The Supreme Court has chosen to focus only on this permission rule, not the law's broader bans on guns in sensitive places like parks or hospitals. This narrow focus indicates the court's interest in the specific issue of permission rather than a broader gun control debate. By narrowing its review, the court signals its interest in the intersection of gun rights and private property rights. This case could set a significant precedent for how these rights are balanced in the future. The outcome could redefine the default rules for carrying firearms in public-facing businesses. It could change how businesses across the country handle firearm policies. This case is about whether states can make "no guns allowed" the default for private property. The decision will have far-reaching implications for both gun owners and business owners. The answer will set a national precedent. It will influence how other states draft and enforce their own firearm policies. All eyes are on the court. The nation waits to see how this pivotal issue will be resolved. Hawaii's strict law is a direct response to the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision, which expanded the right to carry firearms outside the home. Bruin forced states like Hawaii to issue carry permits to all qualified applicants, ending decades of restrictive licensing. In response, Hawaii and other states shifted strategies. No longer able to deny permits, they tightly regulated where guns could be carried. The new laws created long lists of sensitive places and required explicit permission to carry on private property. Hawaii's 2023 law aimed to respect business owners' rights while addressing concerns about more armed individuals in public. This legislative pivot set the stage for the current Supreme Court challenge. The case is a direct result of states adapting to a new legal landscape. The legal fight pits gun owners and the Hawaii Firearms Coalition against the state, each side claiming to defend fundamental rights. Plaintiffs argue the law makes the right to carry a firearm in public meaningless, burdening gun owners with impossible hurdles. They say no other constitutional right requires such location-by-location approval, and the law treats gun rights as second class. Their challenge claims the law violates the Second Amendment by denying practical self-defense. Hawaii, led by Attorney General Ann Lopez, defends the law as a reasonable balance of rights and safety. The state argues property owners shouldn't be forced to allow guns, and that the law simply clarifies their authority. Officials say requiring permission protects public safety and respects both gun rights and property rights. The case is about reconciling individual freedoms with community safety. The case's legal journey has been turbulent, with victories and setbacks for both sides. A federal district court initially sided with gun owners, blocking the law as likely unconstitutional. But the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that decision, upholding Hawaii's law and similar rules in California. The appeals court ruled that the Second Amendment doesn't override property owners' rights to exclude firearms. This split in legal interpretation prompted gun owners to petition the Supreme Court, arguing the lower court misunderstood the Bruin decision. The Supreme Court's decision to hear the case signals its importance for national gun policy. Oral arguments are expected in early 2026 with a ruling by June. The outcome will resolve conflicting lower court rulings and set a national standard for carrying guns on private property. The stakes could not be higher. The Supreme Court's ruling will ripple far beyond Hawaii, affecting states like California, New York, and New Jersey that passed similar laws after Bruin. If the court strikes down Hawaii's law, similar restrictions nationwide could fall, making it easier to carry firearms in public businesses. Gun rights groups would quickly challenge or overturn comparable laws in other states. If the law is upheld, blue states would have a green light to adopt or keep strict rules, making gun permits less useful for daily life. The decision will either curb or empower states' ability to restrict where guns can be carried. The central question: can states make no guns allowed the default for private property open to the public? The answer will shape gun regulation for years to come. Legislatures across the country are watching closely. This case is the latest in a series of Supreme Court decisions that have fundamentally shaped the meaning and scope of the Second Amendment in American law. Landmark rulings like Heller and McDonald established first the individual right to own guns for self-defense at home, and then extended that right nationwide, transforming the legal landscape for gun ownership across the country. The 2022 Bruin decision took things further, expanding the right to carry firearms in public and introducing a new legal test, one that looks to history and tradition to judge modern gun laws, rather than relying on balancing tests or government interests. Since then, lower courts have struggled to apply this historical standard, leading to widespread confusion, inconsistent interpretations, and a patchwork of conflicting rulings across the nation. In 2024, the Supreme Court upheld a federal gun ban for individuals under domestic violence restraining orders, signaling that the justices are open to upholding some gun regulations, especially when public safety is at stake. Now, the Hawaii case presents a new challenge. It asks whether default bans on guns in private businesses are a reasonable measure to protect the public, or if they cross the line into unconstitutional restrictions on the right to bear arms. The justices must weigh whether property rights and the need for public safety can justify limits on carrying firearms, or if such limits undermine constitutional freedoms. Their ruling will clarify just how far states and local governments can go in regulating guns after Bruin, and will set a precedent for future cases. The decision will reveal the court's true stance on the delicate balance between individual rights and collective safety in American society. As the nation watches and waits, the Supreme Court's answer will help define the future of gun rights and public safety in the United States. The Supreme Court's decision will impact far more than legal experts or gun owners. It touches on core American values: self-defense, public safety, and the balance of rights. For gun owners, it's a test of whether their rights will be protected in daily life. For others, it's about local control and the right to feel safe in public spaces. The ruling will clarify the meaning of Bruin and guide courts and lawmakers nationwide. As the country awaits the decision, the case highlights deep divisions over guns, freedom, and safety. The outcome will set a precedent for a generation, defining what it means to bear arms in America. The whole nation is watching.